All right, very good, Steve. Yeah, it's interesting times for sure. My daughter was trying to finish up college this year, and a lot of classes got canceled at the end there, and also my niece had the same issue, and as well as my nephew. So confusing times, but I'm glad you're getting to spend some time with them. And all right, we'll pass that contest information along. Thanks for making us aware of that. I appreciate it, and good to hear you on the net here. This is KD2 Admin Control for the Sunday Night All Things Natural Net. We got 3 more people on the list, and then we'll do another opportunity for check-ins. So without further ado, let's go on down to KD2 RYD. Kate, what's going on in your neck of the woods?
Hi, this is Kate. Can I just check that was me?
Yes, ma'am, you have the floor.
Awesome, thanks. Yeah, this is Kate, KD2 RYD. I don't know why, but in the evenings, I just seem to lose all of my reception. It's like, I've no idea what's going on. I don't know if it's something in my house or something nearby. But when it comes to the evening, there's like some sort of noise appearing. So it's actually really hard for me to hear everything, even though I'm so close to the repeater. I don't know, just what's going on for me. It's just the same, you know, as we're checking in every day. It's
Hey,
actually
Jeremy.
checking in with everyone.
Doing good now that I
in the
figured out
mornings
the
and
YouTube
evenings.
controls.
It's my favourite thing every day. It's been so wonderful to get to know.
How are you?
To know a group of people. It's kind of like watching a Netflix show, you know, like episode by episode. You get to find a little bit more about everyone, and that's been really wonderful. And of all the craziness that's happened in the world, I think there's been kind of a springtime of so many everyday things, natural things, people reconnecting with people just building ordinary relationships with people nearby, and it's been great hearing on the net, instead of all you hams talking about antennas, radios, and the weather, which I know still goes on, hearing people talking about baking and sewing and getting back to all things natural. Yeah, back to net.
Very good, Kate. Well, I couldn't agree more. It's nice to kind of hear our community sense come out a little bit more with this. People being home, they've had a chance to think about what's really important in life, and a chance to spend time with family and just reflect and think about things. And I think it's good for us all. Sometimes it's really hard in the busy world we live in to slow down and appreciate life for just what it is. But I agree, and I'm glad you're enjoying it. And I'm curious about that noise thing. We'll have to come back to that. I know K2LD also has noise issues. I think his stuff shows up more at night than in the daytime too. So that's something we should look into a little more. Now it's really got my curiosity up. That's more than one data point. All right, well, thank you for your 2 cents, and I'm going to roll on down to KC2JQA, and then we'll go to KD2MQE, and then we'll do an opportunity for check-in. So KC2JQA, pick it up.
Good evening, this is KC2JQA, Steve in Rhinebeck.
Got lost? Oh, really?
We are all well here.
Glad you made it back.
And, just kind of echo what the gentleman in Hyde Park mentioned about kids in college. I have a son and
Awesome
a daughter
people.
who are now living with us again, doing college remotely. And in some ways, I think this current situation is a lot more difficult for them as they contemplate their future and the uncertainty which certainly surrounds it. I think it's a little bit easier for those of us who have a bit more experience and perspective on things. But they're coping and trying to stay focused on the work that they have to do. But again, certainly this will be one of the seminal events in their life, which will shape the outcomes in ways I don't think we
can't even imagine right now.
As of yet. KC2JQA, back to net.
Well, excellent thoughts on that, Steve, and excellent insight on that. And my son was up in Canada with his mom, and I just picked him up in the end of February and brought him back here. And he was going to get his GED and get his permit and kind of get on with his life. And then this whole thing happened, and now everything's closed, and he can't even finish up those goals. And I know it's really frustrating for him. my thoughts and prayers are with all the younger people who are, trying to figure out how to cope in this world and try to figure out how to go forward when nothing seems to be going forward at the time. So excellent thoughts on that. All right, this is KD2I and Net Control for the Sunday Night All Things Natural Net. We're going to go down to KD2MQE, and then we'll do another opportunity for check-ins. David, pick it up.
KD2MQE, hi everybody, good to hear you all.
Gotcha, Tony.
So yeah, we're making two. We had, I think it's this morning and a KD last night.
His audio is low again.
We're able to make do with whatever use is left so far. We're also moving stuff around the yard today and thinking about moving a bunch of stuff has ants all over it. We're thinking about building one of those barriers of gravel next to the foundation, and so thinking about how to do that and what the right rules are. It's on our mind. That's it there. Back to that. Thanks.
All right, very good, David. On the ants thing, you can mix borax and sugar and put that out, and that basically acts as an ant trap. They'll take the sugar-borax mix back to the nest, and the borax is toxic to them and not to everything else in the environment. And obviously the sugar acts as a bait, so that might be another option to try before you have to go crazy and put gravel everywhere. Just a 2 cents thought. This is KD2 and Net Control for the Sunday Night All Things Natural Net. We're going to take a pause here and look for further check-ins. If there are any further check-ins, please put your call sign out now.
KQBHM.
Alright, the net recognizes K2BHM and then further check-ins. Negatai. Alright, no further check-ins. Jim, K2BHM. We're just going to tack you onto the bottom of the list here, and it's your turn. How are you tonight?
Doing good. Good evening to everybody. Nothing really to report here. I'm just sitting back, reading the mail, and enjoying the conversation and camaraderie of some good friends. K2BHM.
Alright, very good. Well, thanks for joining the net. And I guess we're going to roll back to the top of the list to KC2 UVP. Mike? KC2 UVP, if you're still with us and you have something to say, it's your turn. Alright, looks like Mike might have stepped out for a minute. Alright, we'll roll on down to KC2 NDA A squared Ron.
Just got a phone call, so just give me a skip for a little bit. KC20 back to net.
Oh, you have a phone call. What a coinky dink. Alright, we'll catch you on the next round trip. Alright, we're down to KD2 RFI. And since we're there, I got a question to pose to you. I wonder if you saw my latest Top Bar Hive video, and I wonder what your thoughts, comments, and observations are. This is KD2I.
KD2 RFI. Yeah, I did watch the video. Definitely, you have a lot of good resources left in that hive. I'm guessing it was just a small colony, and it just couldn't keep itself warm enough for the winter.
That's what I thought.
I kind of think there wasn't a lot of honey in it, and it seemed like they kind of hit a dead spot and couldn't jump over. I think you stated that in the video too. They couldn't just work their way back over to the rest of the resources.
Good, so my assessment of that is
I think I would probably just dump a swarm colony in there. If you can catch a swarm this year, throw a swarm colony in there, and they would take right off. That was absolutely beautiful comb they built.
Yeah.
It was like picture perfect, right across the bars, which my bees always seem to go across the bars, but the wrong way.
Yeah.
And but no, it was absolutely bought a package and dumped the package in there, which that would work too. So, any further on that one?
Yes, it is KD2 and control for the Sunday Night All Things Natural Net. No, that answered my questions. I was just kind of wondering if my assessment was on, and it sounds like it was. It did seem like they weren't able to jump from the comb with good resource over a couple to the next, and so that made me think they froze out too. That and the fact that cluster was up in the comb when I found them. And yeah, I think that colony was huge back in the day, and then something happened that slowed it down last year, and then they went into the winter small, and that's probably what got to them. But yeah, that was my thought as well. I'd like to capture a swarm off of the ones I have here. I really like that string of bees. I'd love to capture a swarm off of that, drop it back in there and let them go. I thought about trying to make a split in there too, but I don't have any great ways to hybridize the Langstroth frames into that to get it started, so I think you're probably on point with that as well. And then, failing a swarm, yeah, I might pick up a package, but we'll see. This is one of those weird years. But anyway, yeah, that answered my questions, so I'll put it back to you for your actual turn on the net. KT2.
Oh, I gotta tell you, I absolutely love those top bars there, though. They were nice, thick. Looks like they were made out of almost like 2x4s or something. They look pretty heavy duty, and they seem to fit really well together, which inspired some ideas in my own mind going forward on the future on some top bar highs. So we'll see what we can do with that. Yeah, the one hive today, I got two hives actually. I think they're going to be swarming out probably within a week. If I was to guess, I didn't go too deep into them. I just really quick pulled the spacers off the top, or the shims as we call them. But the one had this absolutely beautiful comb, and I hated to cut it out of there, but had to get the top cover set back down on the box. So I probably could have just left it and dealt with it. But it was a beautiful comb they left in there. It was absolutely amazing. So, I'm trying to rearrange my thoughts here because I was thinking about a bunch of stuff. Everyone talks, and I always have ideas to throw in, and it's just like, come time to talk and trying to organize and put it together. But one gentleman stated about his son being home from college, or excuse me, being home before he goes to college. I have a daughter that's supposed to graduate this year. Unfortunately, she'd be probably not getting a graduation, which absolutely kills me. As a parent, you really want to go see that. So she's supposed to graduate 4-year degree in college and put a lot of time, money, and effort into it. It's one of those things. Stuff happens. We'll figure out a way to work around it. Just keep driving, keep pushing, and keep moving forward. That's all we can do. I had one daughter ask me, say, Dad, would you be upset if I didn't do what you thought I wanted to do or whatnot? I said, you know what? I don't care what you do.
Nope.
As long as you do it to the best of your ability and keep driving forward. So I think as parents, all we can do is just make the best of what we got, and as long as you keep pushing forward, that's it. So, and sometimes it's good to get back to the simple things. So, and I think for the simple things, we're all going to be turning to Kate and saying, Dave, what you got next? KD2, RF5, back to net control.
All right, very good, Bob. I share all those sentiments and totally agree with you. Yeah, you got to do what you love, or do something that you like to do, so that you're not miserable your whole life doing a job you don't like. And ideas and views and things change as you grow and evolve, and also we have to keep in mind the human brain doesn't even finish developing until about age 25. So the decisions you make at 18, you may not be happy with at 25. You may want to change up what you're doing. So yeah, frustrating about the graduation thing, but like you say, we just got to kind of play along. Anyway, thank you for your 2 cents and your advice and input. This is KD2 and Net Control for the Sunday Night All Things Natural Net. I'm going to take a pause here for check-ins briefly, and then we're going to go down to Steve, K2DED. But real quick, if there are any further check-ins, please call now. Negative. All right. Well, that keeps it easy, and we'll roll on down to K2DED, Steve.
This is K2DED. Well, CJ, I just wanted to repeat on something that you had said about how everybody is, you got to kind of see the positive in this, and that everybody's getting to spend the extra time with people that they normally wouldn't. I think it's played a massive part on amateur radio alone, just with the amount of traffic, you know, no pun intended, of stations that have been getting on the radio that normally wouldn't be, and new stations also who've gotten their licenses up until everything got kind of shut down. And I see a lot of positivity and a lot of good things that may come out of this. That sometimes things like this need to happen for good change to happen also.
Yep.
Not that the poor people who've lost people and stuff like that, it's hard to understand at that time, and this is debilitating to a lot of people, but I think in the end it will make a tremendous difference to this world as a whole, honestly, after everything is all said and done. Back to Nick.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Steve. You know, if nothing else, it helps us, it forces us to change and adapt and overcome. And so we can take the positive of that and use it for good, and throw away all the negative we can throw away. But yeah, excellent thoughts. Well, let's roll on down to Kate, KD2RYD. What awesome stuff do you have for us tonight, Kate? No pressure.
I do feel under a lot of pressure. Slightly distracted by this noise. I've actually moved to my car. I can still hear it. I'm tempted to go inside and turn the power off in the house, but I'm not sure if my daughter will be too pleased about that. Yeah, it is. I mean, you know, I think reflecting on some of the things that have been said, and just, you know, still in my head things I was saying before, and about it is almost as if there's a spring, you know, just in all of the things that are happening. I cannot imagine how many people are going to be wanting to do their ham lessons as soon as the lockdown's lifted. I think we better get ready. I think there's going to be a big flood of people. But you know, however we might mourn for how things were, I mean, we all know the world wasn't right before this happened. I mean, you know, COVID is just the impact that happened to a system that was incredibly fragile and waiting for something to happen. COVID is distraction. Things weren't right before. And you know, that's everything that's happening in the moment is the distraction from really what's going on. And getting back to how things used to be a long time ago is where we all need to go for the sake of our mental health and the planet's health as well. Back to Ned.
I completely agree, Kate. I completely agree. And that's interesting. You have the noise issue in the car as well. And I did note a little bit more noise on your signal than I usually do. So that's interesting. I don't know what to make of it, but be curious to see if we could put some sort of RF probing equipment out your way at some point, and see if we can detect a source maybe. Yeah, all good words of wisdom, and glad to have you put your 2 cents in. And I'm going to roll on down here to KC2JQA, Steve.
This is KC2JQA. Yeah, echoing what Kate just mentioned, you know, there are multitudes of problems in the world today, and I think this whole situation is causing everybody to take a step back, and or at least they should be a little bit more introspective about taking care of the planet better, certainly taking care of each other better, and hopefully, when we come out on the other side, I mean, whatever normal situation comes after this will look different, possibly profoundly so than what we had before, and that should be hopefully kind of down the path towards a better future. And for those of us, sounds like a number of us who have students either about to enter in college or graduating from college, for the young people who really are the hope for our future. Hopefully they'll take away the right lessons from this situation. Again, all we can try and do is just lead by example in our households, and I certainly try and do that for my children to be involved in the community and take care of those around them who are less fortunate, be open and aware to those situations. So, hopefully kind of one by one, we can make a difference in, our small part of the world. There's some very dysfunctional things going on out there as well. But again, just some profound and interesting thoughts this evening on the net. KC2JQA, back to Net Control.
And this is KG2 and Net Control for the Sunday Night All Things Natural Net. Well, thank you, Steve, and yeah, again, I agree. It seems like we're all sort of on the same page here, and many of the people I talk to on the internet and through YouTube and many other communities also seem to be sharing the same sentiment. So I think maybe we can bring some positive change to our world and planet in this trying times, I guess we'll say. All right, let's roll on down to KD2 MQE. David.
KD2 MQE, thanks. Yeah, lots to think about. You guys are a great group. One thing that's going on, and we were talking about how radio, AM radio is getting a lot more traffic and more popular lately, and we're finding that we're getting a bunch of requests. The OMARC Club is getting a bunch of requests for us to go talk to kids, like after-school programs, 4-H clubs, and stuff like that, like more than usual. Our regular education guy is thinking about stepping down, so I've been thinking about curriculum and like what do we want to say to people about what this is. And let me just drop for a second. And being here on this net like makes me want to think, is this a back to nature kind of thing, or do you do need a little technology, but it's maybe a little less tech overhead than all the things that depend on the
Much
internet.
less.
Depend on the power grid, and maybe there's an approach that we should be thinking about like that maybe resonates with people more now than it might have this time last year. That's what you all got me thinking about now. Heavy duty, this and that. Okay, back to you, Net Control.
All right, excellent, David. And yeah, I had considered that aspect of it, but that makes a lot of sense. And I like that you're thinking ahead of how can we adjust and adapt, our educational programs to kind of fit better and hopefully pick up and support more people. So that's a great thought, and I'm glad that you brought that to my mind, and I'm sure the rest of the people on the net appreciate it as well. So thanks for that. And let's roll on down to Jim, K2 BHM.
Thanks, CJ, K2BHM. No, I'm just reading the mail and enjoying the conversation. Did hear something interesting on the web, kind of put things in perspective. In my grandparents' generation, lives were interrupted with World War I. My parents' generation was World War II. My generation was Vietnam. And now we're being interrupted with another war. But in this case, it's not one person against another. It's the whole world uniting against one common biological enemy. Maybe this can be a uniting force that can heal things. I hope that's what eventually comes out of this thing.
Well, thanks for your thoughts on that, Jim. And yeah, let's also not forget the Iraq War in the 90s and the 9/11 attacks in the early 2000s, and it seems to just go on and on. But it's funny because I remember Ronald Reagan talking about the Star Wars program and talking about how much faster we would come together as a planet if we all had one common enemy. And it's kind of sad that it has to come down to having a common enemy before we can get together and work side by side and appreciate each other for what we are. But maybe that's what it takes to drive the change and overcome old ways of doing things that weren't necessarily doing anybody any good. So fantastic insight and thoughts on that. Alright, this is KD2 and Net Control for the Sunday Night All Things Natural Net, and we're looking for any further check-ins. If there are any further check-ins, please put your call sign out now. Alrighty, no further check-ins at this time. We're going to roll back to the top of the list. KC2, UVP, Mike, any chance you're back yet? Alright, looks like he must have signed out. All marketing is out. And we'll roll back and see if KC2 NDA is off the phone yet, or if he's got another phone call. KC2 NDA, this is KD2. Go ahead.
KC2 NDA. Yeah, call's over. Pretty much missed everything that's going on, so any specific topics we're on?
Well, we were just kind of discussing the greater good that's hopefully will come out of the COVID thing, and how people are re-examining what's important in life and that sort of thing. And everyone was sort of echoing that sentiment and adding their perspective and insight on it. So I guess I'll put it back to you.
I did have an idea, but the farmers, I heard, are taking tons of their produce and burying it, I guess because it's not pushing or not selling. And I had a couple thoughts about that. Why don't, I don't understand why. I mean, maybe they will now, or maybe it's just maybe less cost effective, or more cost effective, I should say, to bury the produce because it's cheaper rather than taking it and maybe drying it or making different kind of product out of it. But I don't know, that was a thought I had, and it had something to do with onions.
Okay. Yeah, the sad reality is when onions start to go bad, they go really bad, really fast. If you think an onion smells strong when it's fresh, try cutting one open that's rotten. So I imagine that they're probably burying them because of that. But it seems like you could use that as some form of a compost, or like you say, put it to some secondary use that would be better than just digging a hole and putting it in the ground. But I'll put it back to you for a further comment.
Yeah, I was thinking about candy out of onions. I don't know if they've ever done that or not. I had of course, probably Alexa was listening to me. And I had it pop up on Google that they had a butter-filled, it was some kind of butter-filled onion. And supposedly it was nice and sweet. And I was wondering how onion candy would taste.
Wow, interesting. Well, I know, like, when you cook onions, if you caramelize them, you get that nice, like, sort of a candy, sugary, sweet coating on the outside. And I imagine it would depend on the type of onion. Like, I bet something like a Vidalia onion would be awesome for candy, but something like a red onion probably would be a little strong. But I'll put it back to you for your thoughts.
Yeah, you're probably right. I wonder if you mix it with the right sugar, or if they cook it, or dry it or something. I guess you could probably make onion powder out of it, I suppose. But I'm not quite sure why, the farmers haven't thought about that, or maybe it's just not cost effective to do something like that. I guess, they're used to selling it a certain way, but I think here, I think the farmers need to think about something different about what to do with some of their produce so it doesn't go to waste, or, doesn't have to go to waste, and how they can actually, like now as it sits, people would want to buy food that's lasting, for years, let's just say. So if you were able to take a product like, let's say, carrots, slice them up and stick them in a bag, suck the air out, and stick it on the shelf, how long would it last?
Gotcha. Well, let's see. To the onion point, you could also make onion rings or something like that. But again, you have to have the equipment and the facilities for processing that stuff, especially on a big farming scale, because you have FDA and all sorts of other inspection agencies there. And the last thing you want to do is produce a product that gets someone sick and then they never buy from you again. So that's a concern to have. And as far as carrots, the best way to preserve those usually is canning, and that's an option. But again, facilities, time, energy, etc. But it's interesting that you bring this topic up, because I think this is going to help revolutionize farming. Due to the change in the way we handle things, the way we ship things, and the way things are processed, I'm hoping that this will help bring back more of a locally supported farming and agricultural system. A lot of the smaller farmers have sort of gotten crushed by the big farmers and the big supply chains, and so maybe this will give them a foothold and give communities an opportunity to come back and support their local agriculture producers. Excellent thoughts, Aaron. Thanks for bringing that up. And we're going to roll on down the list here, and I'll put it to KT2 RFI for his thoughts and comments.
KT2 RFI. I was just thinking, not only with the produce farmers, or agricultural, so to speak, but also I'd heard something today about a major meat distributor thrown away tons of meat because their employees were, many employees were infected. Now, like I said, this is only rumor, hearsay. I haven't read this article. I'm in a black hole in my house. I have no TV, barely got internet, satellite internet service, and so I don't see a whole lot of news feeds or whatnot. So somebody can definitely correct me if I'm wrong. But it just goes back to me thinking, we have problems with produce and dairy farmers dumping out milk. We have, possibly meat farmers having to destroy thousands of pounds of meat. So what's going to happen when everything opens back up and the flood of people come back in and create another massive shortage? It just almost seems like a domino effect. You tip one scale someplace and it goes major effect on another as well. So it's definitely think that the small scale farming is definitely something to be looking at and taking more serious. So I don't know, just my 2 cents. Thoughts or comments, corrections, it's much appreciated.
All right, very good. Well, I did hear the thing about massive amounts of meat being thrown out due to contamination reasons as well, and I didn't go and research the validity of that either. But it makes sense if you have a bunch of people that are infected and they're handling raw meat. You don't really want to send that out where people take that out and put it on their counter and handle it and end up getting infected through the food chain. So that makes sense. And along those lines, you bring up an excellent point about most farmers can't afford to lose 1 or 2 crops, let alone throw out massive amounts of stuff. They've got a lot of time and energy and equipment and fuel and a lot of work in producing those crops, and to turn around and throw them out is not only discouraging, but it has a tremendous economic impact on the farm. Farming is not a super profitable business, and it's hard to even stay afloat without these sort of issues. So you have a point there that it may unfortunately wipe out even more of our farms, and that's a real tragedy because we need those. Along those lines, the concept of local community farms is much like the concept of the internet, or even like radio relays, where we have multiple nodes, and so that if 1 or 2 nodes fail, there are other nodes to fill in the gaps there. So I'm hoping that that when we come out the other side of this, that it will have a positive effect on things, and that we'll actually build a more resilient food infrastructure out of it. So with that, I'm going to roll on down to K2DED for your comments. K2DED, if you're still out there, you're up. Check him out. Alright, nothing heard. So K2DED is logged out. We're going to roll on down to Kate, K2RYD.
Hi, this is Kate. Yeah, again, I've been distracted by my noise situation, so sorry for my little drama. Been on a little drive, still sounds a bit noisy. Came back to the house, plugged my radio into the antenna antenna connection downstairs, turned the power off in the house, and turned it back on, and it got gradually worse. And then I just remembered that before, when I was speaking to you all, I'd come up to the bedroom and I disconnected the antenna connection in the bedroom. So it means when I was downstairs, I'm connected to an antenna a cable that goes nowhere. So maybe my connection's broken somewhere, and I'm just transmitting via a piece of coax going through my house. Sorry, it's my distraction, but that's my story at the moment. Back to net.
Hey, that's all right. And interesting, you mentioned flipping the power off and back on. That actually triggered something in my head. I wonder, do you have LED lighting in your house anywhere?
We do have some, yeah. And I have the grow light is LEDs that I installed for my hydroponics. So it could be that my my antenna cable's broken somewhere, and then in the evenings when the lights are on, it's not grounded properly, and it's picking up the noise even more so. And in the day, because I'm fairly close to the repeater, then I can get by with using my finger as an antenna at the moment. Back to you.
Yes, very good. The LED lighting and that sort of stuff may be the source of your issues there, and especially if it's combined with an antenna that's not connected and you're going through coax. And I know what you mean. I could almost spit at the repeater if it was close enough. I literally can walk outside and look at it. I'm going to throw it back up to KC2NDA here. Maybe you can provide some insight on the LED lighting issues you had a while back.
Alpha Charles.
I was able to take a look. You could take a nice AM radio if you have a nice portable, and you could stick it on a nice quiet station and walk around and just go right near every light that's on, or even every power supply you might have plugged in. You'd be surprised. You have a little noisy wall wart, and it causes all sorts of havoc. But just walk around the house, turn the lights off, and see if it goes off. You can pretty much almost turn everything off in the house. If it gets real quiet, you'll notice, there's something that's not right. I found a closet LED that was going bad. LED light bulb, and of course that's mostly what they sell nowadays. But I went upstairs and sure enough, turned off the closet light, and clear as a bell. Nothing, absolutely nothing with the radio, which was great. I had a dining room light as well. Same problem. You'd be surprised what'll end up happening if a ballast or something is going bad. So a little AM radio will do wonders.
All right, thank you, Aaron. I knew you would have some insight on that. I'm going to put it back to Kate so she can ask further questions or make comments. KD2RYD from KD2I Net Control.
Yeah, I think I've got quite a lot to think about. I think that the first thing I've got to do is figure out for sure that my antenna's connected, because anything electrical is going to create noise on a radio if it's not connected to an antenna, right? So, and then maybe I can use an HT and just walk around the house and see if that induces some noise on something. Maybe do I put the squelch to 0 or something, so I'm just picking up some more signal, and then to see if I can hear something. That's probably the best way, I would imagine.
Yeah, I would say that, and then if, like Aaron said, if you have like a little portable AM radio, that's an excellent way to detect noise. But what I'm going to do here is just put it up between you and Aaron so you guys can exchange. So KD2RYD and KC2NDA, you guys can pick it up if you want to go back and forth. KD2I.
KC2NDA. Yeah, AM radio is probably the best bet. There are some, I think I have a YouTube video out on that, where it just showed me going around taking a look at it. Do you even have an AM radio around? I know it's hard to, sometimes it's hard to, I had to purchase a couple myself just to have them.
You know what? I don't think I do, and it's probably a handy thing to have anyway. So that's something I need to get.
Yeah, there's I think one of my favorites is like it's called the Grundig, whatever it's called. I'll go to Hamfest and I'll pick them up for like $5-10, and they have a little light on them, a little generator. They do take batteries and they also charge. Really nice units. But to have something like that as a emergency as well, they're great to have. But yeah, AM radio. Wish I could tell you what else to try. You could put your HD down, but the AM is probably the best.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, maybe we can connect over email or on an email chain, and I could find out what that radio is. That would be great. Thanks.
Comment?
Comment, go ahead.
K2BHN. Yeah, one of the nice things about FM communications is it's not sensitive to noise. You're just looking at frequency shifts, so you can go and amplify it and clip it and whatever, and it doesn't care. But AM is very sensitive to noise, so that's your best bet for sniffing.
Detecting it.
Okay, thanks.
If you don't have each other's emails, I can send an email out to get you guys connected. And I'm glad to put in my 2 cents, although I feel like Aaron is a little more experienced and knowledgeable in this field. Anyway, let's carry on down the list here. KC2JQA, your thoughts and comments.
This is KC2JQA, Steve. One more item to add to the troubleshooting list, and that would be dimmer switches. I had a problem with that a couple of years ago, creating some electrical noise in the house. So there's many switches now which are just not a plain switch, has some kind of electronics in it. But back to the farm supply chain, it's an interesting situation. There's huge disruptions. More than half the food that we consumed prior to this crisis was consumed in restaurants, and the supply chain was set up to be able to deliver food to restaurants and institutional food service, and the other half was, or even less than half, was the food that we're now all relying upon, which is probably like 80-90% of the food through supermarkets and other retail points of distribution. And the system doesn't really adjust particularly well for the kind of massive shift that we've had. And in fact, I'm sure in many of our communities, you'll see restaurants which are actually trying to sell food. They have an ample supply of food from their commercial suppliers, and trying to fill in some of the things, especially like toilet paper and some of the other commodities which might be a little bit more difficult to come by in the supermarket. Let me drop for this 1 second. KC2JQA back again. So yeah, there's a lot of issues with kind of where the food comes from and processing capabilities for turning food into some kind of a more value-added product. There is a company located in Kingston called Hudson Valley Harvest, which has a relationship with probably about 80 farms in the Hudson Valley and up into the Finger Lakes. And they are kind of a distributor for those farms so they can get their food into supermarkets, a place that they would not be able to otherwise distribute. They also have some co-packing so they can freeze and process a portion of the food as well. But that's a big issue for especially some of the smaller farms that we have in our communities, being able to turn that food into something, and as CJ mentioned, in a regulatory approved way with an FDA approved facility. So it's an interesting situation, and I think there'll be some pretty big reconfiguration of the supply chain as we go forward. KC2JQA, back to Ned.
All right, thank you, Stephen. That's excellent information, and that also brings to mind for me, there's something called Farm to Table based out of the Kingston-Woodstock area. I think it's out of the Kingston-Woodstock area. And they do something similar. I think they actually have a processing trailer, so you can flash freeze corn harvests and that sort of stuff to preserve it for later sales, or to package it for a more of a value-added product kind of thing. So that sort of stuff already sort of exists, and this will probably be like dumping gas on the fire for it. So I think that's a good thing. Again, I think a lot of good things will come out of this. So thanks for your insight on that. And we're going to roll on down to KD2MQE. David.
MQE, thanks. Kate's noise situation is so ironic because we were doing this.
Wow, every town.
This afternoon.
I still haven't found toilet paper.
Kate was the only person who could hear every single person in the drill. There was always a dropout between any pair of people, but not from Kate. She was getting a perfect signal from everybody. That's all from me. I need to secure from the net. Like, it's not like I have anywhere to go, but I have stuff I need to prepare for tomorrow. So 73's you guys. Have a good night.
All right, thank you very much, David. And she's perched in a good position up there. All right, well, thank you for your participation, and hope everything goes well for you tomorrow. And I guess we'll catch you next time. And we're going to roll on down to Jim here, K2BHM, and then we'll go back through the list for final comments. So, Jim, pick it up.
Thanks, CJ, K2BHM. Yeah, that's something that's been confused me for a while now. A certain quantity of people consume a certain quantity of food. And now if all of a sudden that quantity of food that they would normally get from a restaurant is no longer available, did they stop eating? Are they that stupid to recognize that all you have to do is take your mask off and you can eat? They're cleaning the store shelves bare, and obviously still eating, so it's just a simple matter of purchasing agents adjusting and sending it to the grocery stores instead of the restaurants. You would think that they would
Still you too, huh, Chris?
figure that out in a short period of time and wouldn't have to go and waste so much, but I don't know. Any comments there? K2BHM.
Yeah, I think it was Steve that mentioned the supply chain being set up more geared toward restaurants, and it's hard to flex that over to stores. Stores have a finite amount of storage and shelving space and refrigeration, and so for them to take basically double their capacity overnight is kind of tricky. But your point is valid, and certainly I'm sure as time goes on here, the supply chain will adjust. But I don't know. I guess we'll take that and carry it back around the loop here for the final comments, and everybody can throw in their 2 cents on it. Let's see. This is K2 and Net Control for the Sunday Night All Things Natural Net, and we have KC2 UVP is checked out as far as I know, and so we're going to roll down to the next of the list, KC2 NDA.
KC2 NDA. So the radio that I'm talking about is a Grundig. Excuse me for saying Grundfos. That's a heater pump.
Yeah.
But in any case, it's a Grundig, Grundig, and it's an FR2000. That's Foxtrot Romeo -200. Excuse me. Emergency shortwave radio, AM, FM, hand crank, world band receiver. Really, really nice unit. And anytime, I think I are like 4 or 5 of them. Usually the antennas break off because my little guy doesn't know what to do with them. Doesn't know how to be gentle with them. But I have a bunch of those every time I go to a ham fest. If I find one or Dayton, usually they're $5 or $10. Sometimes you might pay $20 for them.
KD2 and net control for the Sunday night all things natural net. Thank you for that excellent information, Aaron. And let me just pause here and make sure Kate caught the model number there. KD2 RYD, did you catch that information?
I've got that, and I'm already on Amazon looking up. Thank you so much.
Alright, I figured you'd be on point. Alright, well, thank you for that, Aaron. And we're going to roll down to KD2 RFI for your final comments.
KD2 RFI. Yeah, as far as the food chain is, I mean, I'm pretty sure people are still eating because I still can't find toilet paper. So, pretty sure there's definitely eating. But, no, I just want to appreciate everyone's comments tonight, and great night, thought-provoking information and dialect, and it's just a really good night. I guarantee I won't make the same mistake I've made the last 5 or 6 years, and by this time next year, we'll have a garden. So, we'll be prepping the soil. Well, actually, I've been prepping it for about a year now, but I guess next year I'll actually be putting it in. So, K2 RFI, back to net control. Thanks, everyone. 7-3.
Alright, very good. Well, thanks, Bob, for your contribution to the net and your participation and your excellent thoughts and insight. Let's see. I think K2DED is checked out, but we'll give him one last opportunity here. Steve, if you're still there, K2DED, pick it up.
This is K2DED. Yeah, my apologies. I ran off before to grab a snack. My blood sugar got a little low there. So, but I am here. I was listening to everybody, and just want to say,
I meant to comment on
everybody
Chris's
to stay healthy,
comment.
stay smart about things, be patient, and because your health is so important.
That's
A
right,
lot of
Chris.
people don't realize how much can be taken away with even something simple as a cold or something like that. But thank you, everybody,
Cheers,
and
Bomber.
I hope everybody will be in my thoughts. And
Yeah, I hear reports of it around, but I haven't seen any.
Great night. Back to net.
Alright, Steve, thanks for your contribution, and no worries. I understand when you get low blood sugar, you got to fix it. So thank you for your participation and contribution. And I just want to, there's a couple of comments here in the YouTube live stream. One from Homesteading the Hard Way, my friend down in North Carolina. And he says restaurant food is packaged different and it doesn't interchange well. So that's one thing to consider regarding Jim's comment before. And the other thing he says is unless the power goes out, we can make it without starving. The lack of variety is really horrible. And I'm paraphrasing the last part of that. But and then we have another comment here from Bomber in the live stream chat. She says no TP at their local grocery store, but lots out of town from what she's been told. She said, I have enough for a few months here, but I feel for the elderly who don't have a vehicle and don't have a way to get to the village and get some. So that's that from the live stream. And then we're going to roll down to Kate. It's actually your turn in this final rotation, so I'll put it back to you. KD2RYD from KD2IIN, net control for the Sunday night All Things Natural Day. That's a mouthful.
Yes, Kate. I was chatting with some friends earlier on in the Zoom, and one of them told me that the toilet paper situation is made a lot worse for exactly the same reason as the food.
People go out and
saying
hoard.
that obviously toilet paper is packaged differently for
That too.
workplaces and other places where people might use it, those large rolls, and the supply chain is totally different. And it turns out that maybe not everyone was doing their number twos at home, and it was happening out of the home. And so there's been a massive increase in the requirement for toilet paper for home, as well as the crazy, just irrational buying of the stuff. I do not know how I do not. I mean, I bought a packet a few months ago, and there's still loads of it left. But apparently, it's similar to the food, the restaurant, and the home food. Back to net.
All right, Right, very good, and that's an interesting thought on the location usage concept there. So thanks for that insight. That's something I hadn't even considered. But yeah, still there seems to be someone out there somewhere. I don't know anyone I've talked to yet who's told me they have a gigantic storage full of toilet paper. But there's someone out there who seems to be buying it up in great numbers. Anyway, KC2 JQA, it's your turn. Final comments for the Sunday night net.
KC2JQA, very interesting and informative Sunday night net as always. And just on the supply chain, again, there's a number of restaurants which are selling toilet paper, so if you're having problems locating it, or ask them if they will, because there are apparently plenty of supplies in that supply chain. It's not necessarily the same size or quality for what you normally get at the supermarket or elsewhere, but it's available in greater numbers than what we are used to buying. So that's just a tip. And again, farm to table, it's now a company called FarmBridge, which is actually part of Hudson Valley Harvest. They've all sort of joined together, and they were in the process of moving from the IBM facility on Enterprise Drive in Kingston over to the Hudson Valley Mall, where Sears used to be, along with some other food processing operations. So taking hold in our area is, I guess, a nascent industry, which hopefully
junk mail,
pick up steam once things resume back to normal to help the farmers find new markets for their products. Have a good night and a good week to everyone, and this is KC2JQA back to net.
All right, well, thank you very much for that information, Steve. And yeah, I wasn't aware restaurants were also reselling out of their other side of the supply chain, so that's good to know. Well, thank you for your participation and your comments and all, and we'll roll on down to KD2. Oh, MQE, he signed out. I didn't check him out. So now we're back to the last check-in on the net here, K2BHM. Jim, your final comments for the net, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, okay, thanks, CJ, K2BHM.
Hey,
Gene,
thanks,
I
Steve.
just kind of attributed the shortages to Food TV coming out with a killer recipe for toilet paper hand sanitizer soup, and that's where everything went.
Yeah, probably.
Oh, God. With that, I'm going to sign K2BHM.
All right, very good, Jim, and thanks for the jovial nature. Appreciate it. All right, this is KD2 and Net Control for the Sunday Night All Things Natural Net. This has been a session of the Sunday Night All Things Natural Net, sponsored by the Overlook Mountain Amateur Radio Club, located in Ulster County, New York. If you want to know more about our club, you can always visit our website at www.omarcclub.org. That's whiskey, Oscar, Mike, Alpha, Romeo, Charlie, Lima, Uniform, Bravo, Oscar, Romeo, Golf. I'll drop for a sec. We have a few different nets here on this repeater. This is the 146.805 megahertz repeater with a PL tone of 103.5 and a negative shift of 600 kilohertz. This repeater sponsors a net on Thursday nights at 8 p.m. That's run by K2JLV. That's more technically oriented and amateur radio oriented. A wide range of topics are covered. Net always has excellent participation and conversation, so I encourage you to join that or listen in. And let's see, the Sunday night net we just did. That's Sunday nights at 9 p.m. And then we also have the OMARC Wellness Net. There's a net at about 8:35 in the morning that's more informal. That's run by Paul, AC2UQ. And then we have rotating net controls for the 6:30 p.m. version of that, which obviously runs at 6:30 p.m. and that's daily right through the week, all 7 days. So without further ado, I'm going to close this net out, return this repeater to regular amateur use, and go stoke my greenhouse fire because it's getting cold. All right, 7-3s everyone, thanks for your participation. This is KD2IIN. The net is closed. This repeater is back under regular amateur use. KD2IIN will be clear.
The whole month of May, okay. all modes the whole month of May.
Great job, CJ.
What bands is that on?
Appreciated you running the net. Late check-in. KD2, KJU.
There you go,
Good to
Chris.
hear all these boys in here.
On Industrial Box. There you go.
Thanks for putting
Will
up
do,
with my
Steve.
sense of humor, CJ, and again, take a bitch.
Oh, that radio's hot.
Late check-in, Kilo Delta 2 Charlie Victor Whiskey. Good job, CJ. Kate, you still on there?
All right. So that concludes the Sunday Night All Things Natural Net, and greenhouse is looking a little cold on the charts here, so I got to get out there and get that stoked back up and running hot, and get some more water and some more vitamin C and rest up. Thanks everyone who participated in the live stream. Thanks for watching. If you're watching this later, don't forget this is streamed every Sunday night at 9 p.m. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. We have an excellent community both here in the YouTube chat and also on the amateur radio here on the 146.805 megahertz repeater. Thanks to everyone who came in and supported, and 7-3s, as we say on the amateur radio. I hope you all have an excellent evening and stay healthy and safe and sound. 7-3s.